Hello, and welcome to NAGLREP Success, a podcast series featuring the talents of the LGBT real estate agent community and allies who inspire the LGBT community. I'm your host, David Cerroti. And with us for this edition of NAGLREP Success is John Graff, who founded the John Graff Group out in Los Angeles. He's got a website, propertyforsaleinla.com. And maybe more importantly, he's a NAGLREP member, and he is the chair of the newly formed policy committee. John, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, David. Thanks so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Well, I want to get right into this because you have one of the more interesting rides to a real estate career that I've ever heard of. You've gone from New York to Switzerland to Iowa to D.C. to L.A. Just fascinating. Let's talk quickly about your background. How did Switzerland play in as your first stop?
Yeah, so I just want to point out that New York to Switzerland to Iowa, D.C. to L.A., I did get off the plane and spend some time in those places. It wasn't just one big, long trip. So I ended up in Switzerland because, I just needed to get away from where I grew up in New York, and I was studying foreign relations. So I thought, what a better place to study foreign relations than in a foreign country. So Switzerland, here I come.
And it was Franklin University?
Yeah, it was called Franklin College, actually, and it's in Lugano, Switzerland, which is the Italian region of Switzerland. Most people don't realize there's an Italian part of it, but
it was a short-lived experience because you took a summer internship with one of the more interesting characters in recent political history.
Yeah, that's true. I was very fortunate to get an internship on Howard Dean's presidential campaign in 2004. He was running for the Democratic nomination. He was the former governor of Vermont, and he was kind of famous for signing into law their civil union law, which obviously preceded marriage. Right? And 2 weeks after starting my internship, I was offered a paid position, and just took it and ran with it.
Must have been shocking when Howard Dean had his famous flame out screaming and yelling.
Yeah, it did. I was fortunate enough to be in that room with that speech, and I could tell you that to the people who were there, it was a very different experience. So we were all pretty surprised the next morning to see how it had been spun in the media. But that's life in politics, and it was a good lesson.
And then you, in a way, followed him. When he was named the chair of the Democratic National Committee, you were hired. What was your role there?
It was a real honor to follow Dean at the DNC and the incredible work that he was doing there. So what we did, and my role there was really to help revamp what was called our national voter file. And this is a list of it's publicly available information of every voter in the country. That way you have their phone number and their mailing address, and so you could contact them and send them information. But a big problem was for many years we were losing a lot of information because the data was just kept locally or within states, and it was never shared between those localities. So the DNC under Howard Dean decided we need to share this data and we need to make sure that it's preserved from campaign to campaign so that we don't lose this data and we're starting from scratch every election cycle. And it was undoubtedly a success in the first year that we revamped things in 2006. The Democrats took control of Congress, and then, of course, in 2008, Barack Obama won. So it was
almost an early step in big data, and we're going to come back to that a little bit later. But let's talk now. How did you then end up in Los Angeles from D.C.?
Barack Obama had just been elected. In fact, he had just been inaugurated. It was about January of 2009. And my partner, who was already working in television, got a great job offer in Los Angeles to continue working in TV, but in sports, which is something he really loves. We decided it was a great opportunity for him, so let's do it. Let's pack our bags and go to Los Angeles. It's tough for me because obviously D.C. is a political town. I was always a political person, and we had just elected a president, so it was a tough pill to swallow, but obviously you make sacrifices when you're in a relationship.
How did you keep your political background going in a non-political town like L.A.?
It was tough. It took a little hunting, but I eventually found a job as policy director with the Los Angeles Unified School District. So I really went from, working and focusing in national politics to working in the school board, which is, pretty as local as you can get. So it was fascinating for me, at least, to see how national policy affects things on the local level, and how, the local level can try to fight back and manage their own policies. Was there for about 4 years, and 4 years is an incredibly long time to work in an organization like LA Unified.
And then you were impacted by Matt's dad, who has a real estate company in Pittsburgh that's been family-owned for 100 years. Explain how you got into real estate and how Matt's dad impacted you.
Matt's father owns Prudential Realty in Pittsburgh, and it's not affiliated with National Prudential. They were Prudential, like you said, over 100 years ago, before Prudential was Prudential. They just have such a successful business, and they treat their customers so well and take such good care of them that it opened my eyes to the idea that I could still work and help people and not necessarily do it, in politics. Because one thing for me is, beyond pay, beyond the hours, when I get up in the morning, I have to feel like I am going to help people and make a positive impact in people's lives. So I realized I could do that in real estate, and so I got my license, and here I am.
You find your way to NAGLREP, and then 2 years after that, you bring your political background right back to the table as the chair of NAGLREP's policy committee, and your co-chair is Angela Jones. What's the charge of this group?
The charge of the group is to guide housing policy for NAGLREP. This is a growing group with hundreds of members across the country, and, I think the recent election really emphasized to us a need to gather all of us together and use our clout. And if we're going to do that, we need to, really distill what we're going to be for and what we're going to be against. And so that's the main purpose of the committee, is to, democratically come about policy that we can then go about enacting.
And when you talk about enacting, we're coming off an era of Barack Obama, the Jim Obergefell marriage equality case. You believe 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You believe that right now you're seeing that 1 step back with a nervousness in the LGBT community.
It definitely started with the election of Donald Trump and the massive gains in both houses of Congress by the Republicans, who have, traditionally not been in favor of our equal rights. So there was certainly some trepidation that, was seen pretty immediately after the election by our membership. And so I think Jeff Berger, the head of NAGLREP, saw an opportunity for us to stand up and represent our community and make sure that, we do fight and we don't just roll over for these next 4 or however many years it's going to be.
And that led to the first NAGLREP Housing Policy Summit in Washington, D.C. on March 14th. What are some of the issues that will be discussed, and what do you hope comes out of the Housing Policy Summit?
Yeah, it's going to be a great event in March. So, the biggest thing is we are going to be, as a policy committee, deciding on our priorities for the next year and what is it we want to push for and fight for, and then how are we going to do that. So that's the biggest thing that's going to come out of the committee. But beyond that, it's going to be a learning and networking event. We're going to have some really great panels with speakers from HUD, from NAR, from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Freddie Mac, and we're going to be discussing ways that the LGBT community is at risk for discrimination in housing and areas where we can positively affect change. And then we are also going to take to Capitol Hill to meet with members of Congress and personally lobby them on our positions. So it's an opportunity not only to learn and to grow, but also to make a difference.
This is a major statement within the real estate industry, isn't it?
It is, because we're saying that we are a force to be reckoned with, and that we're not just going to be silent. We are going to use our resources to make sure that our voices are heard and that, we do receive the equal rights that we all deserve.
Well, let's pause for a minute. NAGLREP was founded in 2007. It is a nonprofit with a mission of business and advocacy and is nearing 1,500 national members. NAGLREP benefits offer a profile on NAGLREP.com, which receives 75,000 unique visits per month from LGBT home buyers, sellers, and agents seeking to refer clients. It is the leading referrer of LGBT real estate business. 90% of NAGLREP members close 1 to 3 deals per year through their membership. 8% of those surveyed said they close 4 to 6 deals per year, and 2% are closing 7 to 10 deals a year. NAGLREP also provides networking with a close-knit group of members and learning opportunities. And of course, NAGLREP provides its members with the capability to showcase leadership with the ability to address LGBT housing issues at the local, state, and national level. Listeners can join at NAGLREP.com, NAGLREP.com. And John, when you talk about the advocacy piece of this, why is that so important to an LGBT realtor, even if it's not in their DNA to be out front on issues?
First of all, it's just the right thing to do. But beyond that, it's a way to instantly earn credibility with LGBT customers. As salespeople and consultants, we're always looking for common interests to establish, some type of rapport. You can definitely be sure that our shared humanity as the LGBT community is an interest that binds all of us. So it really is a great way to connect with new clients and earn new business.
Now, you've been around political leaders for so many years. You've seen how the public is drawn to them. Can you equate that to how a real estate agent conducts their daily business?
I wake up every morning and feel like I am running my own campaign and that there's just no election. Because, you have to establish a public persona and go about town as if just like you're running for office, basically. You want to be public and you want people to see you and to know you, obviously know you as someone who's friendly and that they can go to as a resource. Very similar to running for office, I feel.
An everyday agent, should they be comfortable talking about their NAGLREP involvement and what the organization is doing to better the LGBT community?
They definitely should, yes. The vast majority of Americans, even, regardless of their status as LGBT, they support equal rights. So it's something, that everyone is going to, or not everyone, but the vast majority of people are going to understand and appreciate.
NAGLREP continues to do amazing things. One of those new and exciting opportunities is the NAGLREP National LGBT Real Estate Conference, which will be held on October 17th through the 19th in Palm Springs. Yes, the conference is moving west after 2 years in Fort Lauderdale. This year, more than 700 are expected to attend, It will be the largest LGBT and allied real estate event ever. Registration is open at NAGLREP.com. I want to go back, John, to your background in politics. And one of the tricks that you took from politics was this big data. How did your learnings in politics impact your real estate career?
My role with the DNC was, regarding the voter file, and so we had all this information about voters, but then we realized we could add things to that information. So we already had their name, address, and phone number, but with that, we could go to data brokers and in the country, and one of the big ones is InfoUSA, but there's tons of others around the country, and you could do a quick Google search to find one, and we would append basically data to these people's files, so we would know, what are their interests, what magazines do they subscribe to, and we could use all of that big data to basically come up with a profile of, what interests them, what types of policy proposals are going to motivate that type of person to go out and vote. So I took that knowledge and basically applied it to real estate, and it works really well in real estate because data is so indicative of next steps. For instance, you can get data on how long people have owned their home. You can get data on the equity that someone has in the home. You can get data on whether they just had children leave for college. And so certainly a real estate professional would understand the value of that data in pinpointing and predicting which homes in a neighborhood are most likely to sell, so that when you are going door knocking or sending out your mailers, you're really only targeting the homes that are most likely to act in the next year, and you're not wasting it on renters or people who, don't even own the home. They're renters, and it's an investor-owned property. So it's a really great way to target and to save your money and only spend it on the most appropriate targets.
Well, let's have some fun with this. I'm going to ask you to describe what you would do if you got a listing that was a ranch in Los Angeles. How would you mine data to potentially find the right buyer?
You can definitely take the square footage of the house or the number of bedrooms and obviously determine what type of buyer is going to be there. Is it going to be more of a family? Is it a small place for a single person? And then from that, I would say go to your state association of realtors, or if they don't have one, go to the National Association of Realtors and get their profile of the buyer that they do every year. That'll have the level of education and the age and the gender of the typical buyer in your state, or at least nationally. And so then I would combine that with what matches with the home. If it's a ranch home, it probably sounds like something for a family, a small family or something. So combine that with the data from the buyer profiles, go to InfoUSA, select all those things that match up, and then you'll get kind of a file of people in your neighborhood who fit the profile of the exact person who would want to buy that home.
So how much money would we potentially save by targeting?
You could probably wind up saving, at least 75% of your budget, because you're cutting out all of the people who don't, 99% don't need to see your message. And so beyond just targeting it to the people who need and want to see your message, you could even then expand it to a bigger circle of people who want to see it.
We all are just impressed by your knowledge of big data, and I'm sure the listeners will be excited to meet with you at the conference and talk further about it when we meet together in October. We'll get some great tips from you that really jumpstart ideas. I want to close with some final thoughts about the Housing Policy Summit on March 14th. Should people attend?
Oh, definitely. First of all, it's a small commitment. It's a one-day event. So, it's not going to be a big time or cost commitment. And what you're going to receive out of it is, going to be worth tenfold what you put into it, from the connections that you make in D.C. to the people that you meet who are fellow members, to the information that you're going to get. There's going to be so much value in it, and it's free. It's free. It's a free event, no registration cost. You just need a hotel room, or if you have a friend in D.C., sleep on their couch. It's
And
really
that's
going to be a
thanks
great
to
event.
Wells Fargo for stepping up as the sponsor. But also as a PR person, I can tell you just a photo of yourself outside the Capitol or inside the Senate and congressional halls is a very powerful marketing tool.
There's a lot of opportunities for marketing yourself and for networking and for growing.
This has been NAGLREP Success. We want to thank John Graff of the John Graff Group in Los Angeles, his website, propertyforsaleinla.com. We look forward to seeing John at the NAGLREP Housing Policy Summit on March 14th in Washington, D.C., and then again at the NAGLREP National LGBT Real Estate Conference in October. We thank him. Visit naglrep.com. And until next time, I'm David Cerroti.